It just is a good reminder that, even if it rains, right, if we're struggling, we can still struggle well.
Welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of Mint Money, where we talk about all things business, personal finance, and today, mental health in the Great Lakes Bay region. Myself and Kevin are joined by our great guest today, Dallas. Dallas, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
So where are you joining us from?
Yeah, so I'm coming to you as Executive Director from the Great Lakes Bay Region Mental Health Partnership.
Certainly a mouthful. And so within this specific role, I know you certainly do a lot of things, but if you were to go encapsulate that into 15, 30 seconds, what do you do day to day, and especially within the Great Lakes Bay region? Yeah,
so our focus is to proactively improve the mental health for all residents in the Great Lakes Bay region. And so that encompasses Midland, Saginaw Bay, and Isabella counties. And we do that in a few different ways. So we want to advance anti-stigma and community culture. And we want to expand our workplace mental health programs, educate youth. And we also want to enhance our mental health provider access. So taking care of our providers, giving them support that they need, and making sure that we have providers in the pipeline to help support the folks in the region who may need their support and services down the road.
Sure. No, I think that's so special. And it's definitely one thing as TriStar, we've definitely done a really good job of partnering up. But besides myself taking the baton, Kevin, I think it would be more proper for you to go hand the provocateur baton off to yourself. Because I know you've done a lot with the mural downtown with our building.
Yeah. So we partnered with you guys 1 year ago, a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic partnership. There were so many community partners involved. In fact, there were so many involved that I had to take notes because I didn't want to leave anybody out because that wouldn't be fair. So first off, Carolina Donoso, she was the artist, did a fantastic job, does great work. So shout out Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the Midland Area Community Foundation, which kind of you in tandem with them kind of came up with the idea, and they funded it originally.
Yeah, so they had a big hand in helping to fund that mural, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so our building, the TriStar building, which is at the corner of Main and McDonald, was kind of, I've been asked a number of times by different like art scene or different art mural competitions, whatever it may be, to come and do a mural in our building. So they approached me. And I said, well, listen, if we can do something on like a frame so that it's not on the brick, then we can definitely figure something out and work together. And so they said, yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem. So then from there, obviously TriStar, we got involved. We got a grant from the DDA, which TriStar matched. We had space provided to Carolina from Fisher Companies because that's where she could sort of began painting what they called the substrate or the framework of what the artwork is painted on.
The creative journey began.
Yep. Then Three Rivers came out and they hung the artwork on the building. And then we had, everything came full circle because we unveiled it on River Days, which is a Midland Community Foundation event. So Sharon Mortensen came out and unveiled it on that date. And it was just so cool how many community partners came together just to fund it, to make it work, to hang it, to create it. It was such a fun opportunity to be a part of, and I think it's great for the community. So I know different people when they take a look at the mural, and if you haven't seen the mural yourselves, to our audience, please feel free to drive by or walk on by. It's right, like I said, near the corner of Main and McDonald, and it's right on McDonald Street, right on our building. So please come by and take a look. So for different people, it has different meaning. For you, what do you see when you take a look at the mural?
Yeah, well, first, it just speaks to the collaboration. You mentioned all the great partners, and that's kind of what we strive for, right, is that collaboration piece at the partnership. We want to have everybody come together to kind of push this cause forward. So there was no greater example, I think, of having that mural created kind of in that vein. But for me, it just is a good reminder that, even if it rains, right, if we're struggling, we can still struggle well, right? And we can dance in the rain, and kind of knowing that we're not alone in that, and dancing through the raindrops, and, we will overcome. A sunny day is ahead, but we may have those moments of a rain cloud, and that's okay. It's okay not to be okay.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I love that people take something different away from it each time that they look at it. But it was such a great opportunity to be involved with.
Well, thank you so much for the support
and the community. So, yeah. One of the things you talked about was anti-stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think for both men and women, for everyone really, there is the stigma around
Mm-hmm.
mental health and around maybe admitting when you're not okay.
Yeah.
Right. And you said it yourself, it's
Yep.
okay to not be okay. But not everyone feels that way maybe
True.
when things aren't going well. What do you guys do to help break down that stigma?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of our initiatives that we try to do is called the I Matter Anti-Stigma Campaign. So we invite storytellers from across the region to come forward and share their story. So we're having community leaders and friends and neighbors and coworkers and colleagues come forward and simply share their story of their mental health journey. So they're talking about when they realized they needed help, then how they got the help that they needed, and then what that meant for them in helping their mental health to move forward. And what we really want to see is people realizing, hey, if they can talk about it, it's okay for me to talk about it. So we want our physical health to be talked about just like our mental health. And then also, if they got help, then I can go get help. So, a lot of times we see, it's if I said, Kevin, I'm looking for a new primary care physician, who do you recommend? It'd be an easy conversation,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
But if I say, hey, Kevin, I'm looking for a new therapist, we might put some brakes on that, right? So
Right.
we want to get to a point where we can easily have those conversations in our community, because then we'll move people through that pipeline faster. The median time frame of symptom onset to treatment is 11 years.
Wow.
Far, far, far too long, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't wait 11 years to fix our broken leg, right?
Right.
Because so many other things could go wrong. So we really want to move people to talk about their mental health the same way they talk about their physical health, and look to those leaders and the people in our community who are sharing their stories to get that message of hope.
Do you have a statistic, or is there a statistic on how many folks deal with like a mental health crisis at some point in their lives? I mean, to
Yeah.
me, it feels like, is there anyone that doesn't, right? I mean, there's so many different things that could,
The current statistics that I'm aware of are 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 6 youth
okay.
in their lifetime.
Yeah.
It's
Interesting.
profound.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And to your point, I think getting the help that someone needs can be very challenging, right? The number of therapists that are available, and it seems like since COVID sort of, I don't know, set off
Sure.
right a lot of different needs for folks.
Yeah, certainly did.
And it seems like there might be a shortage of people available. Do you find that, or do you find that?
We hear a lot about that in the community, that people are having trouble finding a provider. And sometimes it's education, right? Educating folks on what resources exist. So that's a piece that we really try to help with from the partnership perspective, is educating folks about the different providers who are in the region, and understanding too, maybe that first one you speak to isn't a good fit for you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Continuing to seek out that help. But what we also advise and really try to encourage folks to do is kind of make those connections, maybe to your human resources or your employer, or your primary care physician, and understand what's available to you first, and then who might you speak to, who might you seek help from, and what those costs look like. So in the event you do have a mental health challenge, or perhaps you're in crisis, you're kind of already in the know on what to do. So you can be just more prepared, because you certainly don't want to have to make a bunch of phone calls, when you're in that current need, or
Right.
you're in that crisis, or someone in your family is in that crisis.
Right.
When you mentioned the 11-year statistic, that just baffled me. Quite honestly, that's not something you hear, or what you had mentioned about the broken leg. Crap,
Right.
if you had a broken leg,
We
go
fix
and
it.
go fit someone, or go fix someone. And so when you see that out there, does a lot of that originate in someone's youth?
I
Or
think
I know it's different for everyone. But
yeah, I think it's different for everybody. It certainly could. I just think in general, the stigma exists, right? And we just need to work towards getting that kind of
Sure.
broken down and reduced and hopefully eliminated someday. And it takes all of us, right? It takes these leaders coming forward and sharing their story. Folks in a workplace could certainly talk about and share their stories.
Sure.
We talk a lot about Fisher contracting, and they really implemented that as part of their workforce culture and their safety program. Some of their leaders are coming forward and sharing their mental health journey, and that's breaking down barriers within their workforce. And they've seen that be a really helpful, piece of productivity for their employees, and absenteeism. Like, people are coming forward and sharing their stories, and then other folks in the workplace are coming forward and getting the help that they need. And they're seeing, really qualitative and quantitative data of those outcomes and improvements.
That's
So,
great. That's great to hear. So you mentioned Fisher Contracting in particular, and sounds like they're doing a really good job. Any suggestions for other businesses that maybe haven't taken the step forward with their employees on where they can get started, or how it can be beneficial to them and their
So we
employees.
have a really neat resource on our website, and it's kind of a workplace assessment tool. And it kind of gives you a chance to go through like a little checklist and do kind of a where do our opportunities exist within our workplace. So perhaps, you don't offer an employee assistance program or an EAP, and maybe looking into what that might look like for your employers. Maybe reviewing your benefits package might be a great start. Making them as part of your safety culture like Fisher did. And maybe there's a leader who wants to come forward and share their story to their entire workforce. Because the more we talk about it in front of people and we say, hey, this is okay to talk about, the sooner we'll get people to the resources and support that they may need, which is kind of the end goal, I think, for everybody involved, right? We want our region and our people to be healthy and strong, and that includes our mental health.
What do you think the differences would be for mental health for people who work primarily on-site versus hybrid or maybe like a remote-like setup? Because in some form and fashion, I could see remote, okay, maybe you're not in the office as much. Maybe that's where a possible stress could be, but then also collaboration. And we're also, as humans, very social people.
Very social,
I
yeah.
could see both sides of that. So do you have any suggestions or any kind of feedback from what you've seen personally?
I'm one of those people where definitely an extrovert, but I like to work virtually because I like to have that freedom, that flexibility, to still get my work done and do what I need to do. But, I think it's going to depend on the individual. So seek out those opportunities. We live in an amazing region, right, where there's so many opportunities to gather and, free events and free different things to do. I would encourage workplaces that maybe do have a lot of virtual employees, perhaps look at those different social events that they can do collectively to come together. Engaging with a chamber would be a great idea, and those social events that they hold after hours or different things like that. But kind of keeping tabs on yourself, right? And kind of knowing,
Yeah, sure.
if I'm feeling a little bit disconnected, what can I do to plug back in, and kind of keeping in tune with different social media events and things, because there's no shortage of awesome events across the region.
Well, I'm sure, too, it's probably a big reason why for a lot of remote workers, maybe they're going into the library, maybe they're going to a coffee shop just to go get the buzz or at least the human interaction, too. Because I remember working, like so many other people, during the early parts of the pandemic in a remote-like setting, and you had to be really purposeful to go think about, it's one thing just to go type out an email to someone, but, why not go do a Teams call or like a Teams meeting? And I remember so many times, TriStar, at the end of the day, we'd have like little collaborations or little kind of get-togethers, too, that it really went a long way for a lot of people, at least that I could tell.
Yeah, I think that's a really great example of what folks could do, when they have those remote workers. So it's really important. I know one part that we try to do with our providers, because they can be very segregated and working remotely and with telehealth and such.
Oh, sure.
So bringing them together in a place where they can come, like maybe to a summit is what we try to do one annually, giving them a place to come together, network and socialize, and kind of enjoy that time and space together in a like-minded, set of professions. So that's a really great idea.
Yeah, yeah. I remember we did the happy hours.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember once sitting at O's over in
O's.
Auburn. Yeah, and I was by myself, but enjoying a drink with all my coworkers.
Yeah, sure.
Which was a good time.
No, I think that was fun too. Just to be able to go see people in their own home environment, but occasionally you might see like a cat in the walk in the background or
yes.
someone's dog.
The pets become the colleagues as
Yeah.
well, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, my dog joins the calls often, for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I don't know if you remember our employee call just a few weeks ago.
Oh, with your cat?
When my cat
Yeah.
decided to jump on the desk and turn around and show his rear end to everybody
Why
that
not?
was on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, fun stuff.
He was ready for the call to end, apparently.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, talking about from reconnecting and connecting people virtually, I could imagine if local resources are limited, of course, now with the advent of the internet, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, what may have you, there's probably a lot of resources for people out there to go connect and go talk with people. But I can also imagine too, maybe I know that can work well with some people, but it may not work well with others. And so have you seen the advent? Now, of course, I hear advertisements all the time for whether, I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not going to go there. But besides the point, do you see any benefits to going more online for some of those resources?
I think online gives people the chance to connect in a really comfortable way that works well for them. So I think that's really important. It's really going to depend on what the person and the individual needs, in my opinion. And only that person and their provider can speak to what that will look like, right? So teens may benefit more from, texting or telehealth, right? And using something virtual through their phone. Others may benefit more from an in-person setting and talking to someone directly. And I think there's space for both, and there should be both. And I'm really glad that we have both sets of resources in the region, so people can kind of choose what works well for them. But really making that decision for yourself and realizing, okay, if telehealth isn't working for me, then maybe seek out something else, or maybe they offer both and they have those in-person visits as well. But yeah, whatever the individual really needs and what they kind of see is helping them would be where they need to go.
What do you suggest? Because oftentimes with like a mental health, there could be a mental health crisis, right? Where it's like there's an immediate need, and someone needs. Certainly, they don't need help 11 years from now, right? And no, they don't even need help. Let's call it 11 days from now. They sort of need help in the immediate, right? What can people do when they have an immediate need for a mental health crisis?
Right. So if you're thinking about harm to self or others, we always want you to call 911 or have someone in your circle call 911. If you need some support now, you can always call or text 988. It's a free resource, 24/7, anywhere in the U.S. and Canada. So that's another great option as well. And we always encourage folks. We offer some mental health first aid classes that kind of teach some proactive approaches and noticing those signs and symptoms of someone in the community or in our circle. And saving those like in your contacts would be a really, really great start, like mental health dash the 988. So you can kind of have like a category of mental health resources that are available. I think that's a really great way to kind of keep those in your pocket and know, like, if someone's not, kind of showing those regular symptoms of who they are as a person. Maybe they are, coming in late often. They're a little bit more disheveled. Maybe they're withdrawing. They're not going to those happy hours, right? And you're noticing like, hey, I noticed you weren't there. Those are that could be a sign and symptom of someone who may be suffering from a mental health challenge. So kind of reaching out and saying, hey, I notice this. I care about you. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
And kind of being that initial step and that support for them. I think that's a really great way to kind of make those connections. And, maybe get them connected to the support that they may need sooner. And also if it's not, calling 988 can be helpful for the now, keeping them safe for now. But then encouraging them to maybe seek other treatment and professional help, maybe something that they need to explore down the road.
Yeah. Is there anything like for someone that's having an issue? Is there anything practical that you would suggest for folks, whether it be like, I've heard meditation or just like a practical activity that someone can engage in to sort of, I don't know, try to help to self-correct themselves just in the moment, at least to sort of slow things down if they are having, I don't know, an anxiety attack or some type of mental health issue?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I'm a mental health first aider myself. I went through our training, and kind of what we're taught to do is kind of notice or assess, and then listen non-judgmentally to the person. And I think having that listening ear is a really big piece of giving them that connection and knowing that somebody cares. And then if someone's having like an anxiety attack, like you said, talking to them, letting them know, we're breathing with them perhaps can be really helpful. But again, that person can call 988 themselves as well. And they can, have that resource available and work or talk through or text through kind of the situation. And then understand, hopefully the moment passes, and it usually does, right? With a panic attack or anything like that. So there are some different things we can do, but again, a lot will depend on the individual. But I think it really is going to be helpful to have a community that can notice those signs and symptoms in folks, right? And be that connecting point and that listening ear, right? That's really, really helpful. And sometimes we can say, well, for some, they might go to yoga or they might meditate or take a walk down by the Tridge. For others, they might go to, a support group or see a therapist. What do you think works for you? And kind of putting that control on that person and that individual, right? Because ultimately they're the ones that would need to seek that support and that help, because we can't do it for them. It's kind of like, if you're trying to help someone stop smoking, that individual needs to do it for themselves. So we can be that supportive friend, we can be that supportive colleague, what have you. But ultimately it has to fall on that person to make that change and make that connection. But knowing that there's supportive people in their life can be, usually that first step to just help them get connected.
No, that's wonderful. And so since the 9 months, you have been with the partnership now for 9 months, 10 months. So over this 9-month period, what big changes have you noticed, at least within the region, for the efforts and the for the efforts that your organization is trying to challenge or
Yeah,
trying to
that's a great
accomplish?
question.
Sorry.
Yeah, what I've seen so far is a big focus on getting this training, the mental health first aid training, into workplaces. There's a big interest. And that kind of goes back to the question you asked Kevin about, reducing stigma. That's a great way to reduce stigma because we're talking about people first language. Like we don't say an alcoholic. We say a person living with substance use disorder,
Okay.
right? So that doesn't define who they are.
Sure.
So when we talk about people in that sense, it kind of takes that stigma away, and we don't say committed suicide. We say they died by suicide or things like that. So when we're making those changes and we're putting those people first and we're doing these different things with the training that's available, we're able to start moving the needle in some of those spaces and anti-stigma and getting people connected to resources and support. So we've seen a really big jump in the interest in the training, which kind of provides that connection to support and understanding what those signs and symptoms are for a
Sure.
mental health or a substance use challenge. We've already trained over 250 people to date this
Wow.
year alone. So
Yeah,
that's an increase
incredible.
over last
Yeah.
year. So I think that's the biggest thing I've seen so far this year.
That's great. How do you get the word out to businesses or others about that training? Or maybe you can share with some of our listeners,
absolutely.
if they are interested in something like that, how would they
Sure.
get introduced to that?
Yeah, so I would say certainly follow us on social media. Facebook is a great place to keep connected with our events and subscribe to our newsletter as well. You can go to greatlakesbay.com/mental health. And you can check out our website there and get connected to resources. We do have an adult mental health first aid training coming up in October. It is on October 30th. It'll be at the Bay Area ISD from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there's a nominal fee to get registered, but we can take up to 30 people, and we really hope to see folks there to move that forward. But getting connected on our website and our social media is a great way to interact and share broadly. We welcome you to share and interact with us.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think because we've talked a lot, and of course, Mitten Money's a lot about businesses in the state of Michigan, right?
Yes.
But it also makes me think about children, right, and about schools. So, is there anything being done today, to your knowledge, in schools? Or are you guys doing anything in schools with regards to whether it be mental health first aid or
Sure.
anything around mental health for students in the area?
I think our schools do a really good job of working with their staff and their students, right? So I think there's always an opportunity to see where we can partner, we can support. So we are talking to many different schools in the region, and there's great interest, right, to continue to support the students and the staff. We recently did receive training. Myself and another member of our steering team are trained now to teach teen mental health first aid, which is unique. So we do adult and youth. So adult teaches how to notice those symptoms in other adults. For youth training, it's adults that work with or live with youth, understanding the signs and symptoms for youth. And the teen is really unique because we're teaching the teens, the 9th through 12th grade, 14 through 18 years old, how to identify those signs and symptoms in their peers. Because often they're going to talk to their friends, right, if they're having a concern, or maybe their friends notice it first, right? That could certainly be the case. So we're in active conversations with different schools across the region to implement that. And it's a really exciting program. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can implement that and get it piloted here soon in the region.
Oh, that's great to hear.
What do you say are some of the best resources for parents out there? I mean, obviously, it's one thing to go help implement it at a school or be able to go witness it maybe from colleagues or other people, but from a parent to whether it's one kid who might be entering middle school or elementary school, I guess what is that appropriate age or what are those appropriate resources for them?
Well, the school counselors would be a great start. And again, if you have any questions at all, certainly talking to the child's physician, the pediatrician would be a great start if you notice any concerns. I think they're doing a lot of screenings now too for anxiety, which can also be a great way to just start gauging where we're at. We have a great list of resources too, trying to be pretty comprehensive across the region for what exists. And again, it's kind of a mental health checklist. So again, doing those things in preparation for and knowing what to expect, in terms of copays and what's available for you. But there's a great resource list I'm sure that your school could provide to your student directly, or calling and contacting the office or speaking to your physician.
So Dallas, we've talked a lot about anti-stigma. And so one of the shows that I love, that Jody and I, my wife, love, is Ted Lasso on Apple TV. And one of the things that I love about it is how it really does fight against that anti-stigma, or it's along with that anti-stigma campaign, where Ted really struggles with, well, he's dealing with some issues in his life. He's dealing with divorce. He's away from home. And he has some anxiety issues too. And it's very real in that show. So it's a great show for a number of different reasons,
Yeah.
but I love the drama and how it can go from so, dramatic at some points.
Laughing and
really
crying in
funny
the same
at other
episode,
parts.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if it seems like maybe you watch Ted.
Very much a fan.
And maybe there's another show, but what do you think about shows like that and what they can do for folks?
Oh my gosh, I think it can change the narrative so quickly, right? And when we relate to a character like Ted, it's really easy to get behind and kind of rally behind him
Sure.
and the cause. I loved watching his journey. Like I didn't know what he was doing, like when he was clenching his fists at first, right? But he was having what many would consider an anxiety or a panic attack. And just watching him embrace it at first, and he was very quick to hide it. And then he was like, I can't do this anymore. And that was just so freeing to see.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where we want to get to, right? When he was open with, what he was going through and experiencing, you kind of take that power back, and then you realize, okay, it's not just me. And then he brought in the therapist to help the team.
Right.
And you saw the doors closing multiple times with the players going in.
Yeah.
And just the ripple effect that he had by being the leader and coming forward and saying,
Sure.
guys, like, I need help. I'm not okay. And then the team rallied around him even more. And I just think that was so powerful. It was beautiful. And the show does a fantastic job. I'm so excited for the next season, by the way.
Are they going to? No,
They're
I have
doing
heard
another
about
season.
this, that
Yes.
they are going to do another
Yeah.
season.
And I think
Greenlit.
everyone's signed
Yeah,
on.
it
So,
is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
So football is life.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, and if you've watched the podcast before, we end up talking a bit about
sure.
football or soccer, right? Because it's a big
deep
part
tangents.
of
Yes.
our lives.
And I know
but-
you're a big soccer family, right?
Yeah. What about you, Will? Anything you've seen or?
No, I love Ted Lasso, and talking about soccer, my oldest, so 3-year-old, just started soccer as well. She had her first 2 soccer games 2 weekends ago. So it was a lot of fun seeing her out there. But of course, you can imagine for 3-year-olds, they can pay attention to the ball, but they're just having fun out there.
Yeah.
They're just
Chasing
having a
some
lot
butterflies,
of fun. Yeah.
maybe the ball once in a while.
Of course.
Yes.
It was a hot
I was in
day.
that boat a while ago
Yeah.
too. Yep.
No,
Yeah.
it ended up being a lot of fun just being able to go watch as a parent, just
Sure.
very gratifying, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm sure we'll talk about maybe Ted Lasso season 3 season 3? Or have there been, would it be season 4?
I think it's 4.
I think it would be 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. One of my favorite TV shows of all time, though.
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, exactly to the points we were just mentioning. I mean, just such a roller coaster of emotions, but you're just drawn to it because it's so real. It's so raw.
yeah.
Yeah.
So relatable. And you can pick a piece of every character out, but I think I identify with Ted the
Sure.
most, just like in what he does as a leader. Like I aspire to be more like him. And I think as soon as I watch an episode, I feel like I'm a better person immediately
Yeah.
after I watch it, just because it's like the reminders of be curious, not judgmental,
Yeah.
and believe, like all those little messages that you get.
Yeah.
And I think it's so powerful. It's such a great reminder.
Yep. Be
Is it-
curious is my absolute favorite part of that, right? When he's throwing darts.
Yep.
Right. And the other
Yes.
gentleman assumes that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Absolutely.
And Ted's like, you know what? You should have asked more questions and been a little more curious, and then you would have found out more about me and may not have challenged me
Yep.
so willingly.
Yeah.
So,
Is that a top 5 TV show for yourself or your household?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And I got really lucky because we didn't have Apple TV until like towards the end of the season 3 ending. So I got to binge watch all of it. So
that's
I didn't have to
wonderful.
wait week
Yeah.
to week to week like most people did. So I got to really, really enjoy it all together. I kind of want to rewatch it again because it's just
Yeah.
that good.
it is.
In your opinion, putting you on the spot, are there any other good TV shows out there or movies that do a really good job of depicting things like that?
Oh gosh. I think they all do in their own way. Gosh. I mean, I'm a big fan of Schitt's Creek. That's another one,
yeah.
I think. I hope to gosh they do another like
Yeah.
an
like a
off
reunion.
spin or something, or do
Sure.
another show. But I think just kind of watching like how the characters develop and then what they're going through and how they deal with it is just a big part of like everyone's journey, right? And there's different things we can pick and choose from and relate to really easily.
Well, and just for Ted's character, Jason, I can't pronounce his last name,
Sudeikis,
Sudeikis?
yeah.
Sudeikis,
Yeah.
yeah. Just to be able to go see the talent that he has, because of course we've seen him over a wide variety of different roles, and for him to really
Yeah.
pinpoint in and really accurately depict what he was going through, to have so many people really get attached to that too. I mean, Ted Lasso at one point, I mean, it's still very, very popular, don't get me wrong, but one of the most popular shows out there, period.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, a movie I think of when I think about mental health too is The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
And I think Will Smith did and it's obviously based on a true story, right? And I think Will Smith did a terrific job. I know his name is a little more controversial these days, but did a great job in that
That's a
movie.
great
Just
movie.
the perseverance and resilience that he showed, and all the challenges that he was dealing with he and his son. And
Yes.
yeah, that's another one I can think of.
Yeah, but it's one of those movies where if it's on TV, I have to stop and watch it.
Oh yeah,
And I just let it go. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one.
Especially a true story, too.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep. And it just so happens that it's in the investment world, right?
Oh,
Which is
sure,
sort of
sure,
the
yeah.
world that
Yeah.
we're a part of too, right? Well, so
Of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Anything else that you've lately been watching, your family? It's the mid-money go-to question.
I mean, NFL.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
We're an NCAA. It's football season. We're a football family. So
Is it United House? Is it a split house for maybe yourself or husband or kid, like one team or
We
another?
root for-
Michigan or Michigan State? That's the
Green.
question he's asking.
Go Green.
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
We have no ties to it. We just kind of bandwagon because some friends went
Sure.
there, to be honest. But I mean, we're going to root for our Michigan teams, like all the home teams. Yeah, we really just enjoy watching football together.
Yeah.
Our son plays football, and
Yeah.
so we're really into that. And
Yeah.
it's always fun to watch. I have a fantasy league, so
Oh,
we're always
yeah.
like, "Hey, Mom, which players are we watching tonight?"
Yeah.
So Josh Allen did really well last
Oh,
night,
nice.
so that was great.
Well, I hope you didn't like me draft Christian McCaffrey.
Were you a
it's
first?
it's a
you were a
big
first pick,
problem.
weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was second pick, and he fell to me. But yeah,
Is he
thank
injured
God
again?
I did pick up his handcuffs, so I got Jordan Mason.
Okay.
So who's been helpful, but I'm still struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he get injured again?
Yes, Christian McCaffrey is injured.
Okay.
One thing I loved, by the week, and huge Lions fan, was to hear the Jared Goff chant at the Arizona Cardinals game. It was in Arizona, and the fans were doing the Jared Goff.
It's so
chant.
cool to see. Like, there's almost as many Lions fans, if not more, at all of the away
Yes.
games. Like, that's the coolest
agree.
thing to see ever.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Makes me happy there's such a big following of him. But not only that, but such a big following of the head coach, too.
Yes.
A lot of people can rally behind him. I'm a lifelong Packers fan, actually, but I watched the HBO show Hard Knocks. When they
Okay.
featured Dan Campbell, I'm the biggest fan of him.
Yeah.
He does such a good job, and he's
Yeah.
done a really good job. I mean, I can appreciate it, even being a Packers fan, a really good
Yeah.
job turning around the program.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of resiliency there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of lessons to be learned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's really fun to watch, and I love like if you see clips of him like in practice, like he's doing the
Oh,
same
yeah.
drills as his team. Like that's got
People
to
can
be
rally behind him. Oh, yeah.
it's got to be just like
Yeah.
the most uplifting, and like seeing Hutch last year singing Michael
Oh,
Jackson,
yeah,
Billie
yeah,
Jean,
yeah.
I think it was,
Right.
and getting everybody going. Like
Yep.
it's really really fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, Dallas, thank you so much for coming out
you.
today. It was really a pleasure talking with you, getting to know more about you and more about the mental health partnership. Before we end, is there anything you want to say to the listeners? Just sort of a closing remark or anything of that nature?
Yeah. So really just want to remind everybody that, it's okay not to be okay, and help does exist. And again, if you or someone you know is struggling, you can call or text 988. It's a free 24/7 resource available through text or by phone. So feel free to make those calls and follow us on social media. We would love to interact with you on there and hope to see you at one of our upcoming trainings and events that we hold.
Well, perfect. Thanks, Dallas, for coming on and being able to meet
Thank
us here
you.
in person today. Sincerely appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another great episode of Mid Money.